So the question is, Karl Popper present a defense for open society against enemies. Explain in 20 words. As you know, whenever there is explain, which is different from justify. Justify is in philosophical domain, explain is in scientific domain. You have to present the facts, statements. You have to also give examples. So right from the very beginning, Karl Popper says that both Plato and Marx were against enemies of open society. Why? Because Plato rejected democracy, while at present liberal democracy is based on open society, based on civil liberties, based on tolerance to criticism, separation of powers. While Plato favored philosopher king, monarchy, rule of wisdom rather than rule of law. In fact, he hated democracy. So Plato is sometimes called first fascist, and fascist, in contrast to Democrats, are against open society, against democracy, against civil liberties and freedom of speech and expression. Because every open society must have freedom of speech and expression, civil liberties, tolerance to criticism. They must have liberty, equality, and fraternity. So, first enemy to open society, according to Karl Popper, was Plato himself, because Plato's theory is elitist, and he divided the society into three classes: man of gold, ruling class, with chief virtue wisdom; soldiers, that silver, that chief virtue courage; and commoners, chief virtue appetite. So this eliteness, this division, and this uh, kind of rule of wisdom or philosopher king, where only handful of people who are highly educated are supposed to have wisdom, because Plato favored Sophia, or pure knowledge, while Aristotle favored practical knowledge for the rulers. So if Sophia, pure knowledge, will be itself with very few people, and whenever there are only handful of people ruling, then again it is against open society. Then with the passage of time, also we see that Aristotle also justified slavery, that is against the principles of open society. And Aristotle considered women as mentally and physically inferior. So this anti-feminist approach of Aristotle was also against open society. Aristotle also hated democracy. So partly in Aristotelian thought also, there are elements which are against the open society. And Aristotle gave citizenship to very handful of people who were associated with the state sovereignty. So it is itself elitist, because for him, agricultural slaves, artisans, craftsmen, women, children, old age people, non-Greeks, they were not eligible to get citizenship. So that is also against the principle of open society that we see in democracy. Then he also considered Karl Marx against open society, because Marx favored dictatorship of workers in socialist state. So dictatorship is always, and of any kind, is against open society and democracy. Marxist focus on community rights, class right, working class rights. So individual freedom is submerged in the community's identity, while in open society there is individualism, there are civil liberties, there are freedom for individual in both a private individual capacity and as a citizen. Marx favored dictatorship of workers. Moreover, Marx neglected individual freedom, and he completely neglected capitalism, because capitalism created growth and it led to raised living standard, and without raised living standard, because without creation of wealth and assets, there cannot be open society, because many Western liberal thinkers believe that prosperity was and literacy was the must condition for success of democracy, and democracy ensures open society. Although India has proved it wrong that in spite of low level of literacy and poverty, by and large, democracy succeeded in India. So there are exceptions, but Karl Popper also blamed communist for single party system, totalitarian state, total control of a state in all walks of society. There is no civil society. Civil society is considered to be fifth pillar of democracy. Non-state, non-military, autonomous groups of the society. We do not only participate in our individual capacity, we also do participate in our community's capacity. So civil society is absent in single party communist system or totalitarian system. And also fascism was the worst to which was against open society because it favored not only totalitarian state, it favored suppression of minorities, targeting Jews, and aggressive nationalism, violent nationalism, war, glorifying war. So where the uh, individual freedom was lost and open society was not there. So whenever there is a minority rights are neglected, one culture is being overemphasized, one religion is overemphasized, then open society is at receiving end. Open society favored by democracy favor freedom of speech and expression. Voltaire says, I disapprove what you say, but I can die for your right to say. Montesquieu favored separation of powers with checks and balance. Rousseau favored general will and popular sovereignty, which are the symptoms of open society. So in this way, there are periodically there are various thinkers whose thoughts were away from democracy, away from open society, and many were gender biased, many were racially biased, many were lopsided and neglecting minority rights and individual rights, which is part of open society.